Sheriff's Office Emergency.
Hi, you guys have been out to my house twice today, and then most recently the deputy talked my wife into letting me in the house, and then she locked me in the garage and tried to break my arm when I was trying to get back inside. And then when I tried to
What was that?
She just shot me!
I got the shooting. Somebody, she's driving. She just shot him.
On September 8th at around 6:20 p.m., 33-year-old Colin Turner was standing inside the garage of his own home, locked in by his wife after what had already been a day filled with arguments, police visits, and growing fear that something inside the marriage was breaking beyond repair. With no way back into the house and no sense that the situation was calming down, Colin called 911. On that call, he told dispatch that deputies had already been to the house twice that day, that his wife had trapped him in the garage, and that when he tried to get back inside, she had tried to hurt him. Then, in the middle of that same call, everything changed. Gunshots rang out. Colin's voice broke in panic. He told the dispatcher, "She just shot me," and then the line fell silent. By the time deputies arrived, Colin was dead. What makes this case especially disturbing is that the shooting did not come out of nowhere. Police had already been to the house twice earlier that same day, responding to escalating calls from both Colin and his wife, Bree Christian Turner, a high-ranking officer in the U.S. Navy. The first call came from Bree just before 1 o'clock in the afternoon. She claimed Colin had pushed her against a wall and thrown her to the floor, and she told dispatch there were weapons in the home.
Would make a worrying claim.
Sheriff's Office Emergency. Hi, can I have a police officer come to my house, please? 6184.
Okay. What's going on?
My husband pushed me up against the wall and threw me on the floor.
Okay. Does anyone have any weapons?
No, there's guns in the house.
And what's your first and last name?
Bree Coons. I don't want him to take my daughter.
Okay, give me one moment so I can have my deputies on the way, okay? Don't hang up.
Deputies arrived expecting a volatile domestic violence scene, but instead they found Colin waiting outside for them. He immediately told officers where the guns were, pointed out his own pistol, and tried to explain what had been happening inside the home.
We talked to you guys separate. His daughter, if I go inside, when we go inside and talk to you.
She's got a shotgun and her pistol in the bedroom with her.
Okay.
And my pistol is on the dashboard of my truck. I'll put it there all pretty for you.
Okay, you stay out here, man.
I'm Stoneman.
Her name's Bree.
Her name's Bree. She's got both the kids in there with her.
Alright. Do me a favor and lift your shirt up a little bit.
Yeah.
So why don't you give me a rundown on what happened during your argument?
According to Colin, the real issue that day was that he had decided he wanted to take the children to Georgia to stay with his parents for a while, partly to get them away from the tension inside the house, and partly because he believed Bree's mental health had become unstable. He told deputies that she had recently been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, had struggled with therapy, and had been making increasingly alarming comments around the children. He also said she had hidden his laptop in the dishwasher, cut him off financially, and was trying to control his access to the kids. What stood out to officers in that first encounter was that although Bree had accused Colin of assault, there were no visible injuries, no obvious signs of a struggle, and no independent evidence to support that claim. Without more, deputies could not arrest him, and they eventually left. Before they did, Colin made a remark that would become chilling in hindsight.
So, if she slapped across the face and you got claw marks and a red handprint on your cheek, that's different. You say, yeah, she slapped me. I believe you. I see the handprint. I almost wish.
Frustrated by the fact that police could not act without clearer evidence, he said he almost wished there had been a visible mark, some proof that would show just how bad things had become. At the time, it sounded like a man trapped in a volatile situation and losing faith that anyone could help him. By the end of the day, that frustration would look more like a warning. Just 4 hours later, police were called back to the same address, but this time by Colin. He told dispatch that Bree had locked him out of the house, leaving him outside with one of their children while the others remained inside.
My wife has locked all the doors and said I'm not allowed to come in. So I'm outside with my daughter screaming that she wants to go inside and I can't.
Okay, what's your...
Yeah, y'all have already been out here once today.
Yeah, and you said that now your wife is not allowing you to come outside?
Come inside, yeah.
Come inside the home?
Yeah.
Okay. Isn't there like another child home as well?
Yeah.
Right?
My 4-year-old's inside. She said he's napping, and my 12-year-old stepdaughter is inside.
Deputies returned and once again tried to sort out the situation. Colin explained that he was being kept from his own home, that Bree had taken his ID and access to money, and that he had been sitting outside for hours trying to figure out what to do. When officers spoke to Bree, she repeated her earlier allegation that Colin had pushed her and thrown her down. She also said she had locked him out because she did not want the arguments continuing in front of the children. But just like before, deputies saw no visible injuries on her and no evidence that would justify immediate charges. The deputy told Bree something simple but important. Because Colin lived there too, she could not legally keep him out of the house. It was his residence as much as hers, and if he needed to go back inside, he had the right to do so. After speaking to both of them, deputies left the home for the second time that day. It would be the last chance anyone had to stop what happened next. After the officers were gone, Colin went back into the house to collect his belongings. At some point after that, he stepped into the garage. Then Bree locked the door behind him, trapping him there. Colin began texting family and friends, trying to explain what was happening, and then called 911 again. On that final call, he sounded frustrated but controlled. He told dispatch exactly what had happened, that he had been let back into the house and then shut into the garage, and that Bree was refusing to let him out. Then, while he was still speaking to the dispatcher, the door opened, and shots were fired.
Office emergency.
Hi, you guys have been out to my house twice today, and then most recently the deputy talked my wife into letting me in the house, and then she locked me in the garage and tried to break my arm when I was trying to get back inside. She's currently got me locked in the garage because earlier she broke both of the big doors, and then when I came out here to fix it after getting in the house earlier, she locked the door behind me. And then when I tried to
What was that?
You just shot me!
Shooting with somebody. She's driving. She just shot him. I just heard 4 shots. Sir, are you there? Sir, are you there? He's not answering.
When deputies arrived minutes later, they found Colin lying in a pool of blood in the garage.
Over the door. I'll give you my garage.
Anybody else in there? Can we open this?
He had been shot multiple times and could not be saved. Bree was still at the scene, stunned and disoriented. And in front of officers, she made several spontaneous statements that immediately put her at the center of the case.
Hold on, this is Deputy Owen. Come here, sweetheart. It's okay. Well, do me a favor. Can you, if they're working on it right now. Okay. I need you to go with this deputy, have her see her car. She's going to hang out with you.
Take her. I'll get EMS to come check her out. She's the shooter. Where's your kids at?
Right, that's my oldest right there.
Okay.
She's 12. Her dad's name is Runner. He's in the DEA.
Okay. All right, have a seat. Have a seat.
Yes.
I don't know yet, man. I just got here.
No, I'm fine. That's just my kids. My husband.
Are kids in the house?
No, they're with the neighbor. He's dead. I saw him and I tried to help. He was dead. So well, let's not talk about that right now, okay? My kids don't have a dad or a mom now. And it's my fault. Right? Alright. So right now, we're just gonna do this for right now, okay?
For your safety, for ours, okay?
I'm a murderer.
Listen to me. You're not under arrest right now. You're being detained. Investigation.
No, you should arrest me. I killed my husband.
She literally said, "I'm the murderer," and admitted directly, "I killed my husband." Her children were nearby at a neighbor's house, and officers quickly realized that at least one of them may have seen or heard part of what happened.
Hello, Mr. Jinx? I'm sorry, Mr. Curtis?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we're on Jinx. I'm sorry about that.
That's all right.
Do you have the 3 children over here that belong to
Yes.
Bree?
Yes.
Okay. They're here. Are they okay?
No longer simply admitting the shooting, she started claiming that she had acted in self-defense. She told detectives that Colin had been abusive, that he had pushed her, and that when he came toward her at the garage door, she believed he was going to kill her.
I told him that I wanted a divorce. So he was just trying to take the kids. He's in the garage again, and I locked him out. He tried coming in, so I blocked the door, and he kicked my foot and was trying to push to go to the door. And I was trying to keep him out. I shot him. He was still coming towards me. I don't think I shut the door.
But detectives already had the 911 recording, and that recording did not support what she was describing. On the audio, Colin could be heard calmly explaining the situation, saying that she had locked him in the garage. There was no sound of an attack by him, no indication that he was charging at her, and no evidence that he posed an immediate deadly threat in the seconds before the shots. Instead, the sequence sounded exactly like what prosecutors would later argue. A man trapped, unarmed, on the phone asking for help, and then shot by his wife while the call was still active. When detectives confronted Bree with that timeline, she stopped cooperating and asked for a lawyer. But by then, the damage to her self-defense claim had already been done. Investigators later concluded that after the second police visit, Bree had made a deliberate choice. She did not fire in the middle of a chaotic physical struggle. She did not shoot blindly during some unclear confrontation. According to the prosecution, she waited until Colin was in the garage, locked him in, came to the door with a gun, and fired 4 shots into his back. The fact that the final shooting was captured in real time on a 911 call became one of the most devastating and important pieces of evidence in the case, because it stripped away the room for confusion. The call captured not only the moment the violence happened, but the reality that Colin was trying to survive it while still begging for help. In September 2024, Bree Christian Turner was convicted of first-degree premeditated murder. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. What makes this case so haunting is not only that Colin Turner was killed by the person he had built a family with, but that the warning signs had been visible all day long. Deputies had stood in that driveway. They had spoken to both of them. They had heard the accusations, the fear, the bitterness, and the instability underneath the surface. And still, by the time Colin made that final call from the garage, the situation had already crossed into a place no one could pull back from in time. He called 911 hoping that someone would help him before things got worse. Instead, the recording of that call became the final evidence of how his life ended. The case showed how quickly a situation can turn fatal. The next one, however, shows how quickly an ordinary place can start to feel deeply wrong. Quick interruption. If you're enjoying this video, why not hit that subscribe button? We're on a mission to hit 500,000 subscribers, and when we do, 3 lucky fans will win a limited edition CreepyVids hoodie or shirt. Right now, 61.4% of you watching haven't subscribed yet. It's completely free, and your support helps us make even more awesome videos. So, don't miss out. Subscribe now, and let's get back to the video. At first glance, it appears to be nothing more than an ordinary intersection. But a surveillance camera installed at this location captured a series of extremely strange incidents, all occurring within the span of a single day. Several Argentine news outlets, including LSU, have reported on this unusual crossroads located in the town of Toledo. Locals have since begun referring to it as the cursed or enchanted corner. Security cameras positioned at the intersection recorded numerous bizarre accidents. cyclists suddenly falling for no clear reason, pedestrians losing their balance while simply walking, motorcycles skidding across dry pavement, and even cars whose front wheels seem to twist sharply without warning. What makes the situation even more puzzling is that these incidents occur at different times throughout the day. Some happen in broad daylight, others at night, and they appear regardless of weather conditions, whether under bright sunshine or during rainfall. The most astonishing detail is that every one of these strange moments happened within just a single day. Residents in the area remain divided over what might be causing it. Some believe the repeated accidents cannot be a coincidence and suspect that something paranormal may be involved, perhaps a ghost or an unseen force affecting the area. Others argue that the explanation must be more practical, suggesting that hidden bumps, uneven pavement, or subtle design flaws in the road could be causing vehicles and pedestrians to lose balance. Yet even skeptics admit there is one unsettling detail that is difficult to explain. The accidents do not occur in exactly the same spot. Instead, they happen across slightly different parts of the intersection, making the pattern far more mysterious than it first appears. Let me know your thoughts on this one in the comments below. And while you're letting me know, we go from a street that seems cursed to a building that looked safe, until the cameras revealed otherwise. On October 17, 2015, surveillance cameras inside an apartment complex in downtown Orlando captured what may appear to be a completely ordinary moment. A young woman returning home after a night out with friends. The woman in the footage was 27-year-old Sasha Samsadian, and at the time there was nothing about those images that suggested they would soon become part of a homicide investigation. Yet within hours of that footage being recorded, Sasha would be found dead inside her own apartment, and the truth about what happened that night would send shockwaves through the community. Sasha had grown up in Central Florida and had built a successful life for herself in Orlando after graduating from the University of Florida. She worked in marketing and operations for an educational services company and was known among friends and co-workers as someone energetic, friendly, and ambitious. People who knew her often described her as warm and outgoing, the kind of person who easily connected with others and rarely had trouble making new friends. By 2015, she was living alone in an apartment at Uptown Place, a modern complex on North Orange Avenue in downtown Orlando. The building seemed like the ideal place for someone living by themselves. It had controlled entrances requiring key fobs, surveillance cameras, and electronic keypad locks on the apartment doors. There was even a night security guard assigned to monitor the building. In other words, it was exactly the kind of place where residents felt safe. On the evening of October 16th, Sasha went out with friends to celebrate the final match of the Orlando City soccer season. After watching the game, the group moved between several bars and clubs in downtown Orlando. At some point after midnight, Sasha decided to head home. By the time she left the nightclub, she had lost several important items, including her phone, purse, and key fob needed to access her building. Two women she didn't know personally noticed she appeared intoxicated and unsteady. Concerned for her safety, they helped her share an Uber ride back to her apartment complex so she wouldn't have to get home alone. It was a simple act of kindness from two strangers who just wanted to make sure she got back safely. When they arrived outside Uptown Place around 1:45 a.m., the women stayed with Sasha as she attempted to get into the building. That's when the night security guard, Stephen Duxbury, approached them. Because Sasha didn't have her key fob or identification, he initially refused to let her inside. But when another resident entered the building, Sasha slipped in behind them. Surveillance cameras inside the building captured Sasha entering shortly after 1:46 a.m. with Duxbury nearby. Over the next several minutes, she appeared on different cameras moving through the stairwells and hallways of the building, clearly struggling to make her way back to her apartment. At times, she seemed to be avoiding the guard, apparently worried he might force her to leave the property. Eventually, the footage showed Sasha and Duxbury walking together through the building as he helped her locate her apartment and regain access to it. After that point, Sasha disappeared from the cameras entirely. It would be the last time she was ever seen alive. The following morning, Sasha's friends began to worry when she failed to show up for plans and stopped responding to messages. They went to her apartment complex and found her car still parked in the garage, with a gift she had purchased for a baby shower still sitting inside. When no one answered the door to her apartment, they called the police. Officers entered the apartment later that evening and initially found nothing obviously out of place. But when they looked inside the bedroom, they made a disturbing discovery. Sasha's body was wrapped in her comforter on the bed. She had been sexually assaulted, beaten, and strangled. Investigators also noticed the apartment smelled strongly of bleach, and cleaning products had been poured onto parts of the room and onto Sasha's body, a clear attempt by the killer to destroy evidence. Despite that effort, Sasha had fought back hard during the attack, leaving behind defensive wounds on her arms and hands. The fact that there was no sign of forced entry immediately puzzled investigators. It suggested either Sasha had allowed someone inside her apartment voluntarily, or the killer had found another way to get in.
The suspicious death of a 27-year-old Orlando woman, Sasha Samsudeen's body was found Saturday night inside of her apartment at Uptown Place on North Orange Avenue. Right now, police are not releasing many details, but friends and neighbors say they were stunned to hear about it.
Typical girl, just nice, fun-loving girl. She wasn't too boastful, too loud. Just nice, quiet type. She seemed to get along with everybody.
I guess kind of nervous because we don't really know how she was killed or if we should be concerned that there's someone dangerous living in our building.
Police began by interviewing men in Sasha's life, including a former boyfriend and a friend she had been texting that night. But their alibis checked out and their DNA did not match evidence from the scene. The investigation took a dramatic turn when detectives reviewed the building's surveillance footage more closely. They noticed that Stephen Duxbury, the security guard who had interacted with Sasha that night, had unexplained gaps in his movements. At one point, after his shift should have ended, cameras captured him carrying 3 white trash bags through the building's garage, something that immediately stood out, since taking out trash was not part of his job. From that point forward, investigators began focusing on him.
Based on this, there's something going on here, okay? And so maybe she somehow talked you into coming in. Well, the chart's saying that you did, this is huge. And this is, did you enter her apartment?
No, I didn't.
All right, well.
The only thing, honestly, the situation is bothering me. About the whole thing about her. I'll be straight up. This whole situation has been bothering me. And just thinking about what may have happened is just...
Well, without even being a polygraph examiner, you were able to show me each question you had issue with. Mm-hmm. And every single one of them, on every single chart, was the relevant questions. So that means there's something there. There's something that you're not telling the complete truth about. You have no control over that. That's why this works so well. Now, let me show you another thing. One more thing. What's that say?
Significant reactions. Probably this is what was produced by a truthful person.
0.003% chance that the result was produced by a truthful person.
Damn.
0.003% chance that you were truthful on this test today.
It became more and more clear to investigators that Duxbury wasn't being truthful about what happened that night. And eventually, a search of his apartment uncovered size 9 Skechers shoes that matched shoe prints found on Sasha's floor. His thumbprints were discovered inside Sasha's apartment, including on the underside of the toilet lid. Detectives also noticed scratch marks on his arms that could have come from someone fighting back. The most damning piece of evidence, however, was DNA recovered from Sasha's body, which matched Stephen Duxbury. Investigators also discovered something even more disturbing. Records from Duxbury's phone showed that shortly before the murder, He had searched online for how to override a quickset digital door lock, the same type of lock installed on Sasha's apartment door. Police believe that after helping her return to her apartment earlier in the night, he later came back, bypassed the lock, entered her apartment while she was asleep, and attacked her. Afterward, investigators say he attempted to clean the crime scene with bleach and removed evidence from the apartment in trash bags before leaving the building. The most chilling part of the entire case was the realization that the person responsible was not an outsider sneaking into the building. He was the security guard. The man whose job was to protect residents had used his access and familiarity with the building to prey on one of them. Stephen Duxbury was arrested in November 2015 and charged with first-degree murder, sexual battery, and burglary of an occupied dwelling. In 2017, after a week-long trial, a jury found him guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. For Sasha's family and friends, however, the verdict could never undo what had already happened. Sasha had done what so many people do after a night out. She went home, closed the door behind her, and went to sleep in the place where she believed she was safest. But in this case, the person who was supposed to be watching over the building had already decided that he wasn't there to protect anyone at all. And that is what makes the story of Sasha Samsudeen so deeply unsettling, because sometimes the danger isn't outside the door. Sometimes it's the person standing guard over it. And with that being said, we head to the next footage, which is quieter, smaller, and far less violent, but for many people, just as unsettling. It shows a moment that is difficult to explain. The footage was shared by a woman named Joanna Pascoe after she noticed something strange happening in her daughter's room. Her daughter Evelyn is Joanna's first healthy child. Before Evelyn was born, Joanna had experienced 2 pregnancies that both ended in miscarriages. After going through such painful losses, she naturally became an especially attentive and protective mother, devoting a great deal of care and attention to her daughter. She frequently checked on Evelyn through the baby monitor, making sure everything was okay. But one day, she noticed something that completely caught her off guard.
Okay, that's not possible. What the f*** is that? What is that? What is it? Look at the way, look! It's lingering. Is it the light outside? Like, there's no pinhole, empty, like, the curtains, I pulled the curtains closed. And it's not leaving. It's getting near her. Oh my god. Did she just touch it? Where did it go?
A glowing orb appeared inside Evelyn's room, hovering near the crib. The light moved slowly through the air, almost as if it were drifting around the baby, yet it never left the small space surrounding the crib. What makes the footage even more intriguing is that Evelyn seems to notice the glowing object herself. At several moments, she appears to look directly toward it, even reaching out slightly, as if she is trying to interact with it. To some viewers, it almost looks as though something intelligent is attempting to make contact with her. Online reactions to the video were mixed. Some people suggested that the orb could represent the spirit of one of Joanna's unborn children, returning in some way to watch over or play with their younger sister. Others believed it might be a guardian angel or some kind of unexplained energy. Whatever it might be, Joanna says the video didn't frighten her. In fact, she felt the opposite. Watching the recording gave her a strange sense of calm, almost as if someone unseen was quietly protecting her daughter. And considering how deeply she cares for Evelyn, Joanna says she doesn't mind the idea that someone, or something, might also be watching over her. Whatever that glowing figure was, it left behind questions. The next case, on the other hand, left behind heartbreak, and one of the strangest manhunts in modern true crime. In October 2007, 22-year-old Lindsay Ann Hawker left England for Tokyo with the kind of optimism that usually belongs to the beginning of a new life. She had graduated with a first-class degree in biology from the University of Leeds, had plans to teach English in Japan. and was building toward what should have been an exciting new chapter before her boyfriend joined her later. To her family and friends, Lindsay was bright, enthusiastic, and adventurous. And when she arrived in Tokyo, she quickly seemed to settle in, making friends, adjusting to the city, and telling people back home that Japan felt safe. That sense of safety would become one of the most haunting parts of what came next. Lindsay had moved to Tokyo to work for Nova, then one of Japan's largest private English-language schools. In the months after arriving, she shared an apartment with roommates, kept in close contact with her family, and appeared to be doing exactly what so many young people dream of doing: living abroad, working hard, and building a future in a city that felt full of possibility. But sometime before her death, a man had already begun watching her. That man was Tatsuya Ichihashi, a 28-year-old who lived alone in an apartment in Ichikawa, east of Tokyo. He came from a wealthy, highly educated family, but unlike his parents, he had drifted through adulthood without direction. People who later described him often painted the same picture: isolated, socially withdrawn, strange, and quietly unsettling. He had already shown signs of dangerous behavior before Lindsay ever met him, including stalking and a prior assault on a woman. Yet somehow, none of that stopped what was about to happen. On March 20th, 2007, Lindsay was returning home after drinks when Ichihashi approached her on a train and falsely claimed to be one of her students. Lindsay knew her students and immediately realized he was lying. But when she got off the train and made her way home, she discovered that he had followed her all the way back to her apartment. Standing at her doorstep, he told her he wanted an English lesson because he hoped to study abroad, and in what seems now like a tragically ordinary act of kindness, Lindsay let him in briefly while her roommates were still home. Inside, he drew a sketch of her, signed it with his name, and gave her contact information. That small, seemingly awkward interaction would become the beginning of the end. Despite her roommates warning her not to get involved with him, Lindsay agreed to meet him later for an English lesson in a cafe. She may have thought he was eccentric, maybe pushy, maybe even a little odd, but not dangerous enough to treat as a real threat. On the morning of March 25, 2007, she left home with her teaching materials and headed out, believing she was meeting him in public for a lesson. Security footage later captured Lindsay and Ichihashi together at a Doubter cafe near the station in East Tokyo. The footage showed them sitting together for nearly an hour, with Lindsay appearing polite but somewhat uncomfortable. When it was time to leave, Ichihashi pretended not to have money and persuaded her to get into a taxi with him so he could supposedly retrieve cash from his apartment just a short drive away. Lindsay asked the taxi driver to wait outside while she went in. 7 minutes passed. Then the driver left. He was the last person, other than her killer, to see her alive. By the following day, Lindsay had not shown up for work and had not contacted anyone. Her family in England received the kind of call no family wants, one telling them she had disappeared. Her father and boyfriend flew to Tokyo, while police began piecing together her last known movements from her roommates, her employer, and the sketch Ichihashi had left behind. When officers went to Ichihashi's apartment on March 26th, they were not initially allowed to simply force entry. Japanese procedure required a more careful approach, and officers waited outside while arranging backup. Then, hours later, Ichihashi suddenly burst out of the apartment, barefoot and carrying a bag, and fled down the fire escape. Police chased him, but he escaped into the streets. That failure would define the next 2.5 years. Once officers entered the apartment and searched the balcony, they found something horrific. A bathtub had been filled with a mixture of sand and compost, and from that makeshift grave protruded a human hand. Inside was Lindsay's body. She had been gagged, bound, beaten, sexually assaulted, and strangled with such force that the cartilage in her neck had been broken. Her head had been shaved, and her hair had been placed separately in a plastic bag. The violence of the attack made one thing unmistakably clear. This had not been a panicked accident or a sudden struggle that spiraled out of control. It was a prolonged, savage assault. For Lindsay's family, who had flown to Japan hoping to find her alive, The nightmare had become real. What happened next is one of the strangest and most unsettling fugitive stories in modern true crime. Ichihashi did not leave the country. He remained in Japan, hiding in plain sight while one of the largest manhunts in recent Japanese memory unfolded around him. Police distributed thousands of wanted posters and followed up on thousands of reported sightings, but Ichihashi kept moving, drifting through different parts of the country, wearing hats, glasses, masks, and eventually taking his efforts to avoid capture to grotesque extremes. In one of the most bizarre details of the entire case, he began mutilating his own face to avoid identification. According to later accounts, he cut off the moles on his cheek himself, sliced part of his lower lip to make it thinner, and altered his nose before eventually using money earned through under-the-table work to pay for cosmetic surgery. He changed his appearance so aggressively that by the time police circulated updated images, he looked like a different person. And instead of disappearing into total obscurity, he became something even more disturbing, a kind of dark fascination. As the case grew, parts of the public became obsessed with him. Fan communities appeared online. Some people referred to him as attractive, mysterious, or rebellious, turning a wanted killer into a bizarre object of admiration. It was one of the ugliest side effects of the case, that while Lindsay's family was grieving, and while police were trying to find a murderer, parts of the public were romanticizing a man who had done something unspeakable. After more than 2.5 years on the run, Ichihashi was finally caught in November 2009 at a ferry terminal in Osaka, after a clinic had reported a suspicious man whose altered face matched the fugitive police had been searching for. His arrest ended the manhunt, but it did not end the pain his crime had caused.
This has been a long, hard battle for the Hawkers, and the battle is over. We've worked tirelessly as a family. We've never given in for our daughter. We've never given in. We wanted justice, and we've finally got justice. I'll also just like to thank the Japanese police. After a very bungled start to my daughter's murder, they've got their man. They've worked tirelessly, and they've eventually got the man. And the chief officer told me they would get the man sooner or later. We're just so relieved that this part of our life is over. I can go down to my daughter's grave this afternoon and tell her. Thank you.
I'd just like to say, I'd like to echo what my parents have said, but also I hope that our case kind of gives other families some kind of hope. We thank the Japanese press, we thank the Japanese people, but really, it's us that have done this. We haven't given up, not from day one. All the sleepless nights, all the not eating, all the crying, all the tears, it's all been worth it now, and we've got what we wanted, which was justice for Lindsay.
At trial, Ichihashi admitted to raping and killing Lindsay, but claimed the death had been accidental, that he had only been trying to silence her. Prosecutors rejected that version, and the evidence of the assault spoke for itself. In July 2011, he was sentenced to life imprisonment for Lindsay Hawker's murder. But the strangeness of the case did not stop even there. While in custody, Ichihashi wrote a book about his life as a fugitive, focusing not on Lindsay's suffering or the brutality of his crime, but on his own survival while on the run. The book became a bestseller and was later turned into a film, something that only deepened the sense, for many people, that the story of the killer had too often overshadowed the life he destroyed. And that is what makes the case of Lindsay Hawker so devastating. She was not reckless. She was not naive in any extraordinary way. She was a young woman doing something millions of people do every day, being polite, giving someone the benefit of the doubt, agreeing to what she likely believed was a harmless language lesson in broad daylight. The horror of this case lies partly in how ordinary the beginning was, and in how quickly that ordinary moment became something irreversible. Lindsay went to Tokyo expecting adventure, independence, and a future. Instead, She crossed paths with a man who had already decided he was entitled to control her, and when she resisted him, he took everything from her. That is why her case still lingers so powerfully, not only because of how brutal the crime was, or how bizarre the fugitive manhunt became, but because underneath all of that was a 22-year-old woman whose life should have stretched decades longer than it did. Now that was all for today, folks. If you enjoyed these horrifying clips, click to see more on the video on screen.